India's experience under British rule was a complex one, marked by both gains and losses. While there were undoubtedly some positive aspects, such as modern infrastructure and the spread of education, the negative consequences far outweighed the benefits. One of the most significant losses during British rule was the economic exploitation of India. The British implemented various policies and practices that served to enrich themselves at the expense of the Indian population. They heavily taxed the farmers, leading to widespread poverty and famine. The British also established a system that favored large-scale industries, pushing traditional Indian artisans and craftsmen out of business. This resulted in the loss of livelihood for countless individuals and the destruction of local economies. Furthermore, the British monopoly over trade severely hampered India's economic development. They imposed tariffs and restrictions on Indian goods, hindering their competitiveness in international markets. This led to a decline in the once thriving Indian textile industry and other indigenous sectors. The British also exploited India's natural resources without regard for the long-term consequences, further depleting the country's wealth. Another significant loss India experienced under British rule was the erosion of its political autonomy and self-governance. The British Raj, with its policy of divide and rule, exacerbated existing religious and social tensions, leading to communal violence and an erosion of trust among different communities. This legacy of division and mistrust continues to haunt India to this day. The British also suppressed political dissent and stifled the growth of nationalistic movements. They imposed stringent press censorship, curtailed civil liberties, and actively discouraged educational pursuits that promoted Indian self-governance. This prevented the development of a strong, independent leadership that was necessary for India to assert its own interests. Perhaps one of the most enduring losses was the undermining of Indian heritage and culture. The British sought to impose their values and way of life on Indian society, actively discouraging the celebration of indigenous customs and traditions. This resulted in a loss of pride and identity among the Indian population. Additionally, the British education system replaced traditional Indian knowledge with Western ideas, eroding the rich intellectual traditions that had thrived for centuries. Furthermore, the British implemented policies that perpetuated social inequalities and discrimination. They solidified the caste system, exaggerating existing divisions among social groups. This not only led to the marginalization of certain communities but also hindered the growth and development of the nation as a whole. Lastly, the British rule in India saw a significant drain of wealth and resources from the country. India was used as a source of revenue to fund British colonial expansionist ambitions in other parts of the world. This resulted in the draining of resources and wealth from India that could have otherwise been used for its own development. In summary, the losses India suffered under British rule were many and far-reaching. Economically, India was exploited and impoverished, leading to the loss of livelihood for countless individuals. Politically, the British stifled India's autonomy and suppressed dissent, preventing the growth of strong nationalistic movements. Culturally, the imposition of British values eroded Indian heritage and identity. Moreover, social inequalities were exacerbated, and resources were drained from the country. Despite the gains in infrastructure and education, the negative consequences of British rule in India far outweighed any benefits.